Hello and welcome to the Off the Grid Investing Podcast. This is episode 10. Today we had Oleg Bortman on, and Oleg is a broker out here in the Phoenix area. He owns a few brokerages called the Brokery. And today we talked about the Ukrainian-Russia issue. We talked about entrepreneurship in general and all sorts of goodies. So stay tuned and listen to this week's episode of Off the Grid Investing. So in EXP, if I was an agent for EXP and I recruit my friends, how do I make money, like a percentage of their income too?
Correct. I don't know what the exact percentage is, but like you might make 10% of the house cut off of each agent.
Okay.
For life.
I got my license when I was 18.
Yep.
And then I was going to work for Keller Williams. But when I didn't actually end up working for them. I moved here instead, like kind of last minute to go to college here. But when I was signing up under a friend that I knew. And I was like, they get like a certain percentage of my commission for the rest of my life.
For life, yeah.
I was like, what the heck? And he said, yeah, I get commissions from dudes I signed up like 10 years ago.
Totally. If they stay in the business.
Yeah, just get random checks in the mail.
Yeah, that's what it is. But you gotta, like every business, as you guys know, you have to have profitability, right? So when you get overloaded with so many agents, and when inventory is so tough like it is now, these agents are gonna start, like those that got in the EXP model 5, 6, 7 years ago, they're probably banking some cash right now.
Right.
But when an environment that we are in right now, which is our new norm, both in commercial, residential, the inventory is so tight. Those agents are the ones that got in, and they recruited a bunch of people over these years. They were like, I'm not making any money. EXP is not working for me, or Keller Williams is not working for me, or whichever brokerage firm they're at, it's not working. They're going to move because everyone still has to make money to support their family.
Right.
So where do you go? You go to a smaller local place that people has a brand recognition, because those smaller places are the ones that are getting more of the listings than versus just a big name box store.
So I don't want to grill you too much on specific data, but give us a little bit of an idea of the number of transactions that have been decreased by how tight the market is, like in our metro area. How has that impacted the number of transactions that are happening? Because, it's great if you can get a listing, because obviously it's probably going to sell.
100%.
But there's also fewer transactions happening in general, right?
Yeah, so that is the biggest conundrum, which I'm still trying to dig in and understand myself. So last year, the MLS recorded over 100,000 transactions. So it was like 100,002, 100,004. The previous year, it was just about the same.
Okay.
So yes, inventory is the tightest it's ever been. So I'm not sure. The only in my opinion, true explanation of why the transaction volume has stayed the same is because a lot of transactions are happening off market. So, and then the smaller local players, their reputation or their brands have been long enough that they know in this tight market, you don't want an unexperienced agent. Right now we have over 90,000 agents licensed.
In the
Phoenix
metro?
I'm one of those. Yeah, not in Phoenix, but
I mean, they're licensed in Arizona. So
right.
There's 60,000 active ones, and of those 60,000, maybe the top 3 or 5% probably are going to do 80 or 90% of the business. Yeah. All these reality TV shows, the housing market's on fire, and I was like, oh, I can do this, right? So they have a career, and they're like, oh, my friends will buy with me. So they get their license because they think everyone's making 3%, which that's not the case at all. They think it's very easy, but when you have 15 offers on a house, I have to go through every single offer and try to figure out which one's going to stick, which one has the right terms. So the market is really, really tight. So listings are down exponentially. Today, if you looked at the MLS, they'll say there's about 4,800 or 4,900 complete units. That includes trailer parks, condos, houses. Single family homes are down to 2,500 units in all of Maricopa County.
Normally that number is like 30,000.
That's exactly right. A balanced market's 25 to 30,000. That was 3 years ago. We have a net of 200 people a day coming here from California, Washington, Illinois. Now even the New Yorkers are coming. Yes, I'm from New Jersey, so but I got here 15 years ago.
You were an early adopter.
I was an early adopter, yes. So they're all coming here. So you add all the net people and all these great businesses. Intel's expanding by $20 billion. The Taiwanese semiconductors spending $12 billion. Nestle's opened a production plant. East Valley, West Valley, all valleys are expanding like crazy, right? We don't have enough houses for all of this. So how do you expect a balanced market to get to 25 or 30,000? I don't know. Even if you creep up the interest rates, we're now seeing more people paying cash, but a rate that goes up from 3 to 4. When I bought my first house in 99, I had great credit, it was 8%. So the noise of the media is like, oh, the rates are up. Yes, it's a true statement, they are up. But going up from 3 to 4% is still free when the housing market's growing at 17 to 20% equity every year.
Well, and that's the big question. I mean, my swim coach who bought a home a few years ago, he's like, when's this bubble gonna burst? And I'm like, why do you think it's gonna burst? And I think people kind of my age who experienced the great financial crisis, and they think at some point it's going to correct.
Yep.
But actually, if you look before that, real estate never really
correct.
So what's your take on that? When do we get back to the normal, 30,000 homes? At some point, we probably have to get there, right? Supply and demand just takes care of itself.
And is this happening everywhere, or is this mostly like a Arizona, Florida kind of Sun Belt states kind of thing?
That's what's the big dilemma. Yeah. So NAR recently did they explained, or the numbers they ran out across the country, where we usually have about 6.5 million homes for sale. Right now we have 4.5 million. There's a gap of 2 million homes for people. I mean, these numbers are staggering. For those that are local to Arizona or natives or have been here for the last 15 or 20 years doing real estate, they also, I mean, in 07, 08, we had the bubble, this is, I think, our new norm. People that come here from out of state, like I came here from New Jersey, people coming from New York, the Midwest, even California, they value this lifestyle. They value the affordability of these homes. So, California 40 years ago when homes were starting skyrocketing prices, they're like, oh, these are crazy prices. That's their norm. I was bullish on this market for the last 3 or 4 years, and I kept saying ask me 4 years from now where we're at. I think this is truly our norm for the next 10, 15 years. I always would guess 3 to 4 years. Deep down inside, with just economic numbers, it's not about personal feelings, just strictly supply and demand. How do you get back to 30? You raise the interest rates, people aren't even budging. They're not caring. We're still getting 12, 13 offers on every house. So I believe this is our new norm. And as you see the big money guys that are a lot brighter and smarter than me doing their analytics, these hedge funders are buying, they're coming with $1 billion or $500 million, and they're buying holding real estate. They're not flipping.
As a diversification, long-term diversification.
No cash flow.
It's a hedge.
Yeah.
The number one hedge against inflation is real estate.
Yeah.
The safest place to put your money, stocks, Bitcoin, and whatever you call it. Over the years, historically, 40% of people feel that real estate's the safest place to park your money long-term.
Yeah, and going back to the new normal, before the great financial crisis, one thing we had in Arizona was a lot of home builders building out in the edges, the Surprises, the Queen Creeks, and you could go buy a 3-bed, 2-bath home for 150,
yes.
200 grand, in the early 2000s leading up to that. And they're not building those homes anymore. Land has gone up in cost.
Totally.
So you don't have new supply kind of at this, anything of under 500,000. I
would buy it. Yeah.
There's not this new supply that's going to change things.
Correct. And the supply issues are, one of the biggest challenges we're having. You think about it. 2019 was the start of the pandemic. It really hit us in 20. So the market shut down for like 2 weeks, and then people realized it's not the end of the world. And all of a sudden the market started flooding. Like, oh my God, I still have my job. I'm still going to live. It's not the end of the world. So you get through a pandemic, fine. You get through a presidential election year where every time it's a presidential election year, people pull back because they don't know what's going to happen. Presidents changed. Now you have a war in Ukraine, and the market's just as crazy because of the supply-demand issue, right? They say it's a chip shortage. It doesn't require chips to build a house, right? I mean, if you want to make the house, then you get some chips. But it's wood, cement. We're representing 3 smaller builders, and I'm out there, It's amazing to me that a human's still framing a house. If you go look at a house and people want a perfect house, it's impossible. We're human beings. There's going to be errors. But there's human beings that are nail into the wood, so they're still framing homes. So, yes, there's a shortage. There's a shortage of everything. So how you try to go get a used car right now, it's more expensive than if you bought it. You could have bought a car a year ago, used car, put on 15,000 miles and sell it for more.
It's crazy.
Whatever. Crazy. So, and that's not a necessity. It is if you're going to work, but it's not a necessity. A house is somewhere you have to live. You're not going to live on the streets, right? So I don't know. I truly believe this is our new norm. The top, I don't know what a top is going to be. With inflation rates as that we're seeing, the number one hedges against them is always real estate. So people are buying, hedge funders buying, I'm buying, you're helping. I mean, your concept, I'm an investor in your concept, the crowd sourcing of local people buying in at smaller shares. I mean, you're giving back. I think it's such an incredible opportunity. I wish when I was younger, I had an opportunity to buy a share at a small piece.
Yep.
So what you guys created out here, I'm a huge proponent, but you're a believer and people believe in what you're believing. So I don't know when the prices change.
Yeah, and then the interesting thing with the pandemic, anything like that happens that is such a dramatic event is going to change attitudes, behavior, psychology of people. And one of the big things that is coming out of it is that people want to live in a nicer place now.
100%.
I lived in New York before I lived here, and I was renting a 2-bed, 2-bath with a friend for $4,600 a month, which now doesn't seem that bad, but I mean it's way higher now, and even in New York. But we were it was not a great place to live, and a lot of New Yorkers are okay with that. And then with the pandemic, people are spending so much time at their house that they left it going, you know what? Life's too short to live in a place that I don't enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's a city, whether that's a neighborhood, or a house, at the micro level. Post-pandemic, people are valuing their home more. They're willing to pay more. They're willing to give a greater percent of their income to it. And that was a thesis change, a big change in our psychology, I think, from COVID that's driving this. Those are the fundamentals.
What do you think is going to happen? And you mentioned New York. What do you think is going to happen in the markets like New York, Seattle, Portland, where it's cold? Generally, it's throughout most of the year. It rains a lot.
Yeah.
The summers are nice there usually. But what do you think is going to happen in markets like that? Because I see like most people and businesses included are moving to the red states that are warmer.
Yep. So I think that you bring up multiple different topics within that concept. I think truly the people like from the red states, I grew up in New Jersey, I left. First you have taxes, right? Then you have government burden on the people. There's a tolerance level, I think, as at every age group, at 3 years old, 10 years old. As you get closer to my age, your patience start wearing on you, right? and so those states are in a lot of trouble. The New Yorker is a perfect example. When they realize you can work remotely and go live in Florida, and it's a 2.5-hour flight, and it's no state income tax, and the same penthouse that was 8,000 square feet that was worth $100 million $100 million, that's correct, all those zeros in New York, that you could get for $35 million right on the Atlantic Ocean. But it's 3 times the size and the weather's better and no state income tax. Just the state income tax, they're saving $5 million, $3 million, $8 million net to them. I mean, if you're making $50 million a year and you pay no state income tax versus being taxed at 50 or 60%. Because in New York, you have federal, you have state, you have local, you have, hey, I want to breathe tax. I mean, they make up taxes, right? I mean, that's for those they get it. Same as Californians, and same as Washington and Oregon. So you have those states that are super high in taxes. I think Washington has a carve out, and there's a couple cities that very low taxes, but overall high tax. If you can't work for a company or business, you're like, well, why am I going to stay here?
And non-government friendly.
Totally. And if the new government doesn't align with your views, why are you going to raise your family there? Mm-hmm. That's the beauty of America, right? You have 50 states, so you have 49 other places you can go from the one you're at. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you want to be a more liberal state, Great, you have those options. You want to be a more conservative state? Great. You want to be in the middle? Go in the middle. You have those options. No other place in the world, and you don't have to change the language. The monetary system's the same. I don't have to use a Bitcoin here or euro there, right? Or yen here. It's all American dollars. So it gives you the flexibility. If you think the schools are not good, if you go to public school, private school, charter schools. If the schools don't offer, those states don't offer charter schools, go to another state. So, but people want a lifestyle. They want to raise their families in a safe environment. A lot of these other states, it's not as safe as it used to. When I was younger, I used to go to New York all the time. I felt totally safe. Now you can go rob a Louis Vuitton store. If the bag's less than $1,500, you're not even going to jail. That's foreign. You go to Chicago, these big cities, people don't feel safe. What, am I going to go shopping and get hustled on the street at the same time? Why would I be paying that kind of lifestyle when you can go to Arizona, you can go to Florida, you could probably go to other southern states or Midwest states. The weather is great most of the time of the year.
Yeah, the Sun Belt, if you draw a smiley face across the United States, besides California, but
sure.
if you go across the way, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, even the South,
Florida.
Mississippi, Louisiana, Florida, Georgia, that's
North
where
Carolina.
North Carolina, the lifestyle there is so much better, both weather, government,
cost of living.
Yeah. And I always wondered why people lived in the Northeast after I lived in the West.
Yeah,
then I moved to New York. I'm like, why do people live here?
That's a great question.
And I think it's there's a lot of opportunities there, but it's easy to see where the growth is kind of going to come.
100%.
I think after living in Arizona I'm only going here for college, but I lived in Washington growing up.
Okay.
I'm going to GC right now.
Yep.
But I don't think I could ever spend a full Washington winter ever again in Washington after experiencing Arizona. It's just so much better. Do you think that the Arizona, like Florida, Miami, do you think these areas will turn into what New York was turning into 20 years ago?
That's the biggest concern. If you actually look at the history, even on a political front, Texas 40, 50 years ago was actually a Democratic state. And over the years, it's switched. So, which if someone told me that before I read it and read it, I was like, there's no way, it's not possible.
I would never.
But they were,
guess.
so they flipped, right? So is it possible to flip back? Absolutely. And that's a concern. So those people that are leaving their states, like California and Washington and New York, you're welcome to come to our states, but don't change our states. Because you're coming here because you love the lifestyle.
Coming here for a reason. Don't come here and vote for the same thing you left for. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Don't change it. If you're happy with those 60% taxes and you think that you pay your fair share, stay back there and pay 60%. I work 7 days a week. I pay more than my fair share. I sacrifice more from staying away from my family by working harder. But I'm not going to California to change the way you politically look at your place. Don't come here. I left New Jersey because I was tired of it. It was a rat race. No matter how much I made, if I made $100,000 or $200,000, it felt like I made the same because the progressive tax rate was so high. I was like, oh, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. So I didn't come to Arizona and say, oh yeah, tax me more. That's not why I came here. I came here for better weather, a beautiful wife, and a beautiful life, and I got it all. So now if I want to go change,
you're saying the women aren't beautiful in New Jersey?
Not as beautiful as the Arizona women, for sure. That's a whole nother
We're gonna have to take that out.
Yes. Out here the weather's great, so people are all more fit, right? They're hiking.
It's a different lifestyle.
It's a different lifestyle. They hike all the time. They're biking. They're playing tennis, pickleball, golf. So when you're more active, you're tan. I was at a soccer field this weekend. I mean, you look better, right? So people have to take care of themselves more than if it's winter 4 months out of the year. You put on sweaters and heavy jackets, and you're like.
I mean, the winters in New York City, everyone's just hunkered down, and
totally
you get
it's
pale
depressing.
and you put on 30 pounds.
Studies have shown that constant overcast, rainy weather, snowy weather, it actually makes people more depressed than being in sunny weather.
And then you
100%.
come here and it's sunny every day, and you're like, wow, I feel better every day.
Yeah.
It's a big it stands out. And once you've done it, it's hard to go back, I think.
I was just back last week visiting my mom. I haven't seen my mom in a couple months. So I left here on Saturday, and Levi had a soccer game that day. It was literally like 82, 84. So it was a week from this past Saturday. I took a red eye, land Sunday morning. It was literally 10 degrees. With the wind chill factor, it was probably minus. So I had a couple sweaters with me. No jacket, jeans, sweater. I come out, I'm like, this is unbelievable. My nephew, who goes to Montclair State, was playing baseball. He had a doubleheader. So we go out to Lehigh, which is in Pennsylvania, to go watch him play. And I'm there, jeans. I had 2 layers of sweaters. I even borrowed his like winter jacket, and I needed a blanket. And it started flurrying. So I'm like, that's why I don't come here in the wintertime. Forget living there. But I left 82 to be -8.
Yeah.
Like why? No, I'm over. I'm done.
So a couple things that we want to talk about. I definitely want to talk about the Brokery. Before we talk about that, you're from Ukraine.
Yes.
Born in
Kiev.
Born in Kiev.
Yes.
So want to get your thoughts. Obviously, a lot to talk about, but you're the first Ukrainian I've talked to since this has all happened. I'm sure you have friends still who are living there and family who are on the ground. So just love to hear.
There?
Yeah.
What's happening.
So I was born in 75. We came over to America in 79 as Jewish immigrants. So in 1980, they closed the border. So we were one of the last families out. We landed in New Jersey in 1979, right around August. So 80 was closed, and at that time it was still the USSR, which is a conglomerate, I guess, or a socialist republic of 15 different countries, all under one. It'd be like our federal government taking control of all 50 states. So late 80s through Gorbachev, he breaks it down. Reagan told him, "Hey, bring down the wall. Let's." So Gorbachev privatizes and kind of frees the 15 republics. So everyone's like, "Oh my God, it's freedom." Now you got to understand also, when you're used to communism for years and generations, people didn't know exactly what to do.
Mm-hmm.
They're used to having low rent places. They're used to getting a stipend of $200 a week. Cost of food was very low. So for some people, it was hard to change that mindset. It's all mindset. Life is nothing more than a mindset. If the government teaches you, or even as a little kid in kindergarten, first grade, it's all your mindset, what your teachers teach you, and as your parents. My parents, so we come over in 79. The borders reopened in the late 80s. We brought over between 88 and 92. My cousins, my grandmom, still had some distant family that lived in Russia at that point. But everyone from Ukraine we brought over. I had a distant cousin, Max. He now lives in Florida. He has a lot of super close classmates that he went to school with. He's in mid-30s, and they're all fighting. So it hit home. I'm so blessed to be here, but I left that place. And for my parents, it was their motherland. My mom was 30, my dad was 42. No one spoke English. So imagine even as a refugee now, if we got attacked, and forget going from Arizona and say, oh, I don't want to be so conservative, I'm going to go to New York. That you live with it. But imagine getting pulled up and going to Brazil, right, where they speak Portuguese. You have no connections. You don't have the language. Or you go to Canada or Mexico, right? So Canada would be like, oh, at least people speak English. Mexico border, we speak it. So the Ukrainians, they're very proud people. So their first language now is Ukrainian. They're not big fans. I speak fluent Russian because at that time the Soviet Union, all 15 republics, first thing they taught in schools was Russian, and then wherever you were from, Belarus or Georgia, you had your own dialects. So I spoke Russian coming over. I can understand Ukrainian, but I can't speak it well at all. But imagine getting uplifted and having to go somewhere. 4 million. They already have 4 million refugees out, so they're trying to stay as close to the border. That's close to dialect. It'd be like, again, if we're being attacked, you go to Canada versus going overseas to Spain. Now, a lot of the countries are friendly and will take them, but they're trying to, they want to go back home because eventually when the war is over, you'll be like, hey, I want my Phoenix home back. I'll rebuild. So
yeah, that's one of the things that was so kind of inspiring to me is how much they love where they're from.
Yeah.
And all the interviews, just having never been there, they said we're going back. We're fighting, or you know, if they didn't stay and fight, I know the men had to stay, but if they fled, they say, we just want to go back home. We just love our homeland.
100%.
It was all this pride in where they're from.
They are. I mean, that's like for us, you know, America's 225 years old. So America's a very young country. Ukraine's been there for thousands of years. I mean, anyone from Europe or the older countries, they have pride in where they live. It's their grandparents, their great-great-grandparents. They're buried in cemeteries. They're close. It's a very different cultural mindset than we have here in America. We're very young, as you look as a whole. So, yeah, it's an awful situation. I believe our government has to take some responsibility for it. I'm not saying go send our men and women that risk their lives every day for our freedoms there. That's not what I'm saying. But, you know, Europe, people don't understand politics and foreign politics. Russia, Putin's old KGB, communist, he's always wanted to reunite all 15 republics. In early 2000s, under George Bush, he took Georgia back.
Yeah.
In 2014, under Barack Obama, he took Crimea back, which borders the Ukraine to get into the sea. And then now under Biden, he's trying to take Ukraine. A lot of this could have been avoided very easily. So he, meaning Putin, he supplies all of Europe, or a lot of Europe, natural gas and oil.
And that's his cash flow.
That's his cash flow. 2 years ago, when gas was $2.25 a gallon versus $5.50 a gallon here, and we were pumping, this is the first time in American history we were actually exporting more oil than not. And I know this topic talks about all the time about green new, let's be no fossil fuels. Listen, there's 8 billion people on our planet. Show me how many windmills and solar panels you would need to supply 8 billion people, right, with energy. It's not possible. The technology is just not there. And moving forward is great. And if you think about energy efficiency, China's got 1.3 billion people. India's got 1.2. They're polluters. At least our EPA standards are so high that even when we're pumping our oil here, it's cleaner than China will ever do. It's cleaner than India will ever do. So if we kept pumping what we had, instead of shutting down the Keystone Pipeline and all the other pipelines, Europe would not be under so much pressure for Putin saying, hey, I'm cutting off your natural gas tomorrow. You either stay back and I'm going to take Ukraine. They're going to say, well, where am I going to get my natural gas? Where's Germany going to, it's cold, it's wintertime. How are they going to heat their houses?
And it takes decades to replace the infrastructure and to do that. Yeah.
So if we kept those, and I understand, again, if America was the number one exporter of oil, which we could be, we don't have to go to Saudi Arabia. We don't have to go to Venezuela, where it's a socialist country. We don't have to go to Iran, who's ready to throw atomic bombs on people. We could actually export it, and we still pump it cleaner than anywhere else because our standards are so high.
So why do we buy oil from all these places instead of just pumping it ourselves?
Because people's ideology becomes in front of people's morals and humanity. That's the problem.
And they want America to be the green place when we just buy it from other places.
That's
instead. Exactly
right, because we still need those fossil fuels. If you put morals and humanity before ideology of politics, but I'm not into like either side's party. I think all parties need to freshen up. I think I'd be more libertarian. I want small government. I want all freedoms because I came from a communist country. Mm-hmm. I want everybody to have the right to vote that work. Everybody have an opportunity to work.
Private property rights.
Yeah. Own. It's freedoms. It's America. You should have the right. If I want to say something, I should say something. If I offend you, I'm sorry. Don't like me. Mm-hmm. I'm from the East Coast. People offend each other every day, in love. I mean, that's how you hug somebody. You call them a bad word.
Yeah,
but they know it's in love. It's nothing hateful.
It's one of the hardest things to get used to as an adult is the amount of criticism that politicians get, the amount of criticism you're open to in the public space. And it's such a gift that we have here because
100%.
In Russia, you go to jail. They
Yeah.
passed the law soon after they invaded. If you say anything negative,
That's it.
I mean, so it's and that's how they can continue to control people. That's how he controls the narrative. That's why he's still popular there, given
right.
what's happened. Why do you think they have been able to fight and defend themselves so well, even though they were so less equipped? Everyone thought,
Totally.
expected they were just going to kind of get
Totally washed away
Yeah.
in like
Just
3
like
days.
Crimea, right?
Yeah.
Because Crimea, they kind of just went in there and took it a whole
Yeah.
new
Well,
number.
because so a lot of so here, that's a perfect question. So why Crimea took over so easy? Because in Crimea, a lot of the people who were still there were Russian. They actually wanted to be part back.
Oh, okay.
Ukrainian, it's almost like if you go to Italy, right? If you're Sicilian, you're Sicilian. You don't want to go to Italy and go to Sicily and say, "Are you Italian?" No, they're they're very proud that they're Sicilian. In Ukraine, they're very proud of their culture is a little bit different than the Russian culture. They love the ability of having the freedoms to speak their own language. They celebrate Christmas different, New Year's different. They have their own cultures. So Crimea, it was a small country that didn't really have a lot of natural resources besides being a port. They don't have a lot of infrastructure. And the population in Ukraine is less. I mean, I don't know the numbers, less than Russia for sure. But I don't think and the challenge with Putin, listen, if someone's this crazy to go into a sovereign country, Poland, I think also Poland's been amazing. They're obviously part of NATO and the EU. Poland understands that if Ukraine falls, this is a nightmare. So they've been so supportive. And whatever the president's doing to support them, it's none of my business on the military front. But I give him, all the props in the world because he understands, like I say, Putin wants all 15 republics back. It's not going to be pretty if he takes over Ukraine. So the European nations that border the Ukrainian border, they're going to do whatever they can to help the Ukrainians to stop it. That's like their wall. Hungary's been great. Everyone, we as a country should have done more. I'm not sending troops there, but we can send planes, more tanks, missiles. There's a lot of stuff they can send. I love when our government's talking about, oh, we just funded a bill for $800 million. Dude, they want to do a road bill here for $2 trillion. What is $800 million when kids and women are dying every day? Every time a hospital, apartment building, how much does it cost to build a 8-story apartment building in America?
Right.
I mean, I don't
half a billion
half
dollars.
$1 billion. They're worried about, we just funded $800 million. For what? Like, what's that get them? 4 tanks and a missile? Like, it doesn't make sense. These numbers sound great and big, but in reality, you go to Vegas, a new casino is $4 billion to build.
Right.
Right.
Were you surprised with how tough they've been, or did you kind of expect them to be?
I am super proud of them. I would be super proud of any nation fighting for their rights. I am definitely impressed on how far they have held back. And at this point, like, I don't think Putin takes any more space unless he gets really crazy and drops some nasty stuff. And then it's a worldwide issue.
Yeah.
The problem is when you're fighting with somebody who's as crazy to invade a sovereign country, I don't know how he backs out with a win.
Yeah.
Like, there's no win-win for him, right? So when someone's backed up to their back is against the wall, I don't know how you converse with somebody at that level anymore. So it's
So how do you think it ends then?
I don't know. The sanctions are, on paper and sounds great. Oh, the sanctions are great. But we're still buying oil. The other countries are buying oil. So you can sanction him, but clearly he still has enough money to keep fighting, right? We sanctioned the oligarchs and took their yachts and all this money. So what has it done? He's still fighting a war. So clearly those are not working to the extent they should have. They should have sanctioned them 4 months prior to invading when they had troops on the Ukraine border, like 100,000 troops for 4 or 5 months. I I wasn't surprised when it happened. So the troops were lined up. The Olympics start, right? I'm out at soccer fields with my buddies, and we're talking about this nightmare that's going on. And they're like, well, when do you think it's going to happen? I said, 2 days after the Olympics are over. Because Putin still wants to go to the Olympics. The Russians are in the Olympics. He's not going to do it in the middle of the Olympics. What happens? A couple of days after the Olympics, boom. I mean, it was so telegraphed. And I'm not even the military. I'm just a common sense, simple guy that was born in Kiev, grew up in New Jersey, and live in Arizona. I look at supply and demand. I look at simple numbers. And it's common sense. It's not about politics. It's about humanity. It's about morals, doing the right thing. You drive around and you see a homeless person. I have water in the car, give them water, candy bar, right? Just doing the right thing for each other is what we need to start doing more of.
Well, and I think that the biggest advantage that Ukraine has had is they have inspiration on their side. You know, Russia has basically mercenaries that they're paying to go work. No one's paying the Ukrainians. You know,
I mean, I saw a video of like a Russian like come across the border and was like, I don't want to fight anymore, and the Ukrainians were like, well, come, like, just put your gun down and come hang out with us, basically.
I think there's some hopeful things that are happening now with them moving out of. He's saying they're moving out of Kiev, and they're going to focus on kind of this land bridge between Russia and Crimea. I guess we'll see what happens, but it's been inspirational for
100%.
all of us, and the president. I'd imagine you're a fan of him.
Zelensky.
He's turned into just like a hero that I think they underestimated.
Totally. I mean, just think about it, right? You're so underpowered, but it's not the first time a smaller country that's undermanned, right? Remember, I saw the movie Spartans 300. I mean, there's people that are so proud about their culture that they will do whatever. You know, you watch these, even our Navy SEALs or our Green Berets and our Special Forces. You know, I saw the movie Benghazi, I wasn't there, but you had 13 of some of our finest soldiers, men and women, fighting off like thousands of people, and they were shooting from the top. One guy loses his arm, and he's still fighting. I mean, it's not the first time, and it's not gonna be the last time. But when you believe in something that's strong, that mindset can't be beaten by. You might kill a lot of people are going to die, unfortunately, which is the worst part about this. But that love for humanity, love for each other, will outpower the bad people for sure.
Yeah,
it's just amazing, and we're blessed. I mean, we're blessed to. I've been very lucky that I've been able. I mean, I have a amazing PR person, Elena. I'm gonna give her a shout out. She's gotten me some incredible exposure locally. We're trying to get first aid kits and stuff to people in Ukraine. And this is going to go on for a long. They have to rebuild a country. I mean, you know, it's funny to look at sometimes. Like, we're like, oh, you know, we have a storm and the power's out for like 4 hours in the middle of summertime, and it's 120 degrees. And we're like, oh my God, I'm going to die. Right? Yeah, it's nasty. It's hot, sweaty. They have to rebuild streets. They have to rebuild schools. You got to rebuild power. Like, this is, I don't even know where you start. Like, that's why there's a lot of smarter people than me in this world. You need to send these engineers out there to help rebuild it to a better level going forward.
Can you talk a bit about what specifically you guys doing, and then kind of a hard transition, but want to talk a bit about the Brokery and your why you founded the company and kind of what you do different. I think Brokery's involved in some of the Ukrainian stuff you're doing too, right?
Yeah. So there's a local place called the Ukrainian Cultural Center. I met this lady, Svetlana. She came out here 15 years ago, and she worked for a Ukrainian consulate, so she's really well connected. So just by chance, I was connected with her. So we're starting to raise. So we were looking for first aid kits, ointment, Tylenol, Advil. And imagine hospitals being blown up, right? All their supplies and goods. First of all, there's a chip shortage, right? It's shipping supplies everywhere is a nightmare. And then all the supplies you get are getting blown up. So I was just talking to her. So she's got strong connections on how to get things to the right places. So we had the Brokery, have decided to kind of leave our office open for these supplies. The first week and a half was amazing. We moved all the stuff over. with us and the Ukrainian community. I think they were able to box up over 100 boxes in the first like 10 days. And now we're trying to get the logistics together to ship it out to Ukraine. I also asked her, which was a really good point. I said, hey, you know, everyone's asking me where do I send money? And she said, I'm always cautious about sending money because I never know. There's still corruption everywhere. There's a lot of underhanded stuff. I can't advise on any one organization. But she said the biggest problem is even if you ship money, there's nothing to buy. Just think about it. Poland just brought in like 3 million refugees, 2.2, whatever. Don't quote me the exact number. Somewhere between 2 million and 4 million refugees, right? There's a country, imagine Arizona. We have 8 million people here, right? 11, how many million?
Sounds right.
Somewhere around 8 million people. Imagine 2 more million people coming here. First of all, forget a housing shortage. Like when pandemic hit, you couldn't even get toilet paper, right? But imagine all the infrastructure is gone. The supply chains can't come in. Everyone's got money, but what are you going to do with it? So instead of collecting the money, it made most sense to collect supplies. Because if you could ship the supplies, you know they're at least going to be used right away. So when she opened up my eyes in that perspective, see, when people talk to me and they have in my opinion, they have a good concept, I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I love talking to people a lot smarter than me with a different perspective than me because they're like, wow, I didn't even think about that. That is a really cool concept. So now I'm on the forefront of, hey, if we'll still collect as many supplies, it's going to go on for a long time, and weekly or monthly, whenever we have enough, we'll just ship that over, and hopefully it helps one family, 100 families, 10 families, whatever, going forward.
Yeah, and that's an amazing thing to just start doing something. I mean,
yeah,
and you'll figure out one step at a time how to get it there, how to you cross that bridge when you get there. And are you collecting this stuff right now at your Brokery offices?
Yeah, so we have a couple offices around the valley. One's in Arcadia, so off of 48th and Camelback. We have one in North Central off of 8th Street and Bethany Home. So yeah, we have people shipping supplies in. We have people literally just dropping off like literally ointments, Neosporin, bandages. I can't tell you how many toothpastes and toothbrushes I got, which was amazing. Somebody went to Costco and bought the big Band-Aid. Like I think almost like half a pallet showed up. I mean, please don't ship half pallets to my office. That's not what I'm asking. If that's the case, we'll just ship it like to the Ukrainian Cultural Center because they have probably the space for that. But yes, we are doing as much as we can.
Yep.
Being in such a great place that we live.
So your company. We normally would start out with this, but we hit the ground running with some great things. So
we talked about some good things. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your story, how you got started? I know on the line it said you got into pharmaceutical sales to start with.
Right? Yeah. So my background was in pharmaceutical sales. So I went to school for bio-pre-med. Like any Jewish kid, my parents thought I was going to be a doctor or a lawyer. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I disappointed them. But that's, any immigrant that comes over to America, their parents are like, oh, my son's going to be a doctor or a lawyer. That's what they thought. So
even my parents thought that too about me. So.
It's never too late. You can still go back.
I'm good.
I feel the same way. But I did. I went to school for bio-pre-med. I worked in pharma in a lab for a couple of years, and then I joined Abbott in their sales. And then I did sales and then sales management, and I traveled a lot. So I was with Abbott for 10 years, which was my longest stint. I read a great book for those that never read it, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Mm-hmm. In 1999, I read it, and it changed my perspective. So again, like I was never a big reader. College, I obviously get to read a lot of books. It was not one of my favorite things to do, but this topic really resonated with me. So I read the book, bought my first investment property in the late 90s, and then I was working for Abbott, making good money. I started investing in real estate in the early 2000s. Started buying a lot of properties in Vegas. 2003 before the bubble. So 2003, 2004.
Where were you living at the time?
I was still living in New Jersey. Oh, okay. I wanted to invest in Jersey, but the numbers just didn't make sense. And it wasn't a landlord friendly state. It was a tenant friendly state.
Were you buying like single family, multifamily, or?
I started buying condos because those numbers made sense. So in 2003, I was able to pick up condos for like 60 or 70,000 in Vegas, 2-bedroom, 2-bath condos.
Like short-term rental or like?
They were long. We didn't have Airbnbs and VRBOs.
Oh,
yeah. Come on, you're
yeah.
too young.
Sorry.
That's way before your time, or before my time. But but the rentals made sense. Like you could get a tenant in there for $850, HOA's a couple $100. And rates were low back then too. It was like, I don't know, 5%, which was great because when I bought my house 2 years prior, like I told you, I was locked in at an 8% rate, and I thought that was great. So when I saw rates in 03 for like 5.5%, 3% down, I was like, what? Like, who buys a property with 3% down? Like, that was so foreign to me. If I wasn't putting 20 or 25% down, I wasn't buying anything. Because my parents was old school. Like, you got to save money, you got to pay cash. Well, obviously I couldn't pay cash at 70 grand on the property at 25 years old. But I started investing. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad really changed my perspective. I was working for a great company, gave me great health benefits. They gave me a company car, expense. But I was making additional income that I didn't want to sit on. So I started buying up these condos. So I made a commitment to myself that every 6 months when I got a bonus, I was going to buy another condo. Well, man, the first one I bought for like 60. That same one cost me 72 6 months later. 6 months later, the same one cost me 90,000. I was like, man, I should have bought all of these like a year ago. But they started going up, and that's kind of where we are, right? But there was a different scenario because in 2005, when I was still buying, I finally get a promotion. They moved me out to West. So I leave New Jersey, get a promotion as a regional manager for Abbott, and I land in Vegas. No state income tax. I can buy a 3,000 square foot house for $500,000. The same house in New Jersey is $1.2 million, and the property taxes are like $33,000. I'm like, dude, I'm like a celebrity. I didn't know what to do with my money. Like, I mean, just it was foreign to me. It was almost as foreign to me as leaving Ukraine and coming to America. Like, it was so foreign that you can live and have sunshine and pay no state income tax and have this and be a single guy at that age. Is like, dude, sign me up.
Vegas.
I'm retiring. Yeah, and living in Vegas, it was like a no-brainer. But it was foreign. So as I keep growing and getting older, I start seeing things that I've never seen before. So I'm all excited. I put 25% down. Actually, what I did is I had 5 condos. I sold 2 of them, took the assets of those 2, because those that I bought for 60 now were worth 150. So I had like 70,000 in one, 70,000 in the other. I sold those 2 off, leaving me with like 2 at that time. And I took the whole 140, don't have to pay a penny out of my pocket, and buy my primary residence. I'm like, man, this is even
Perfect.
better.
Yeah.
This is a no-brainer. So I buy for $500,000. I think I have a loan for like 360 or 380. Don't the exact numbers back then. And then, 07 hits and the market shifts. But I wasn't really too surprised because when I was buying these things, they're like, oh, zero down, zero down. I'm like, who buys something at zero down? I mean, imagine going to a car dealership and like, oh yeah, here's a key to the Lamborghini.
Yeah, who lends at
Who
zero
lends
down?
at zero down, right? So that's what we had, the bubble. And they had no doc loans, no social security loans. I mean, you barely needed a pulse to have a loan. I mean, people were coming in there, they were lying, getting 6 homes in lottery. People were doing the same thing here. So the builders, right, talk about in Phoenix, they were building 30,000 units, and one person that, was a bartender in Vegas was flying out here and owned 6 homes. I'm like, how, like, I'm in the wrong business because in pharma I was making good money. I could barely afford 1 home. And these bartenders, I'm like, man, I should change careers and become a bartender. Like, it was like, it just didn't make sense. Like, I was so scratching my head. Well, it made sense. I consider myself a libertarian. Supply and demand made perfect sense. None of it that was going on made any sense. And then we hit this bubble, right? When the music stops and you're playing musical chairs, that's exactly what happened. When people were buying with interest-only loans, the debt started going up for America. The banks had to lend at a higher rate. The rates went up. It was it. So we had this incredible correction in the market. Well, it didn't affect me. Yes, I changed careers, and think about this. So I was in pharma. Still would have been fine and everything. We were still in Vegas in 2008. I was traveling all the time. So I told my wife, let's come back to Phoenix because it didn't matter where I was based. It was part of my region. So I relocated the family back in Phoenix in, it was like December 07, January of 08, right around that time frame. And I'm still with Abbott for about a year. And I want to start a family. And my wife's like, well, you're on the road all the time. I was traveling 200 nights a year.
Wow.
A lot of these medical device reps, the concept of pharma was amazing. It was the coolest thing. You get out of college and like, I got a pharma job. You thought like you're retiring in 3 years. the title was there. Everybody thought you were the coolest. You get free company cars. It was great. So I'm like, Jenny, I want to start a family. She's like, we got to be home to start a family. I'm like, okay. And we accrued enough assets over the years with some of the real estate that I said, you know what, I'm going to get my license out here and get my license. So imagine in 2009 leaving the 6-figure job, right? Changing careers, getting into real estate, where condos used to sell for $180, now they're 30 or 40,000 for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo. They're short sales. The lender's giving you 2.5% co-broke, taking 6 months to close. So every deal I'm making $400, leaving a 6-figure job. Do you know how much you got to sell? And condos and townhouses at the time, you couldn't even get financing because the government stepped in and said, we will not warrant those items. They considered them high risk assets. So the only people who were buying was cash. So I had to go compete with agents who have been doing this for a long time, try to get a listing, or how to convince my friends with the cash to buy. It was a nightmare.
Why did you make that change? What was the real, because you were probably, 10 years into the career, probably getting easier, like
For sure.
you're moving up a little bit, so you're not doing as much of the grunt stuff. Why'd you make that change?
What I've realized as I was getting older, no matter where I was for work, I always felt I could make more money. And pharma was fabulous. Like, I loved the title. I loved flying on airplanes. I loved getting the benefits. So if my wife and I wanted to go on vacation, I was platinum with Marriott for life. You would get upgraded for, first class, all that stuff. It was great. But if they paid me $100,000 or $200,000, I was like, you know what? I made the company $8 million this year. I think I'm worth more.
Yeah.
But I'm one of those that I don't even believe in my glass is half full. My glass is always full. It's full. I love life, right? So I'm like, you know what? Abbott was amazing. They spent all this money to develop me, train me. They've been great. But this is a time that and I talked to Jenny, and she said, honey, if this is what you want to do, I will support you. And she did. Knowing that at that time we didn't have kids, which was great, that my wife was comfortable with me taking the risk on myself. You got to have somebody that's going to support you and in the risk that you want to take. All entrepreneurs, everybody that's sitting in this room, you guys are all entrepreneurs. You have no salary, right? You have nothing. You got to go every day to earn a paycheck. It's very different. And then when you you start a company, start growing and developing the company. I get it. Abbott paid me what I was worth to them because they had 90,000 employees. I get it. If I thought I was worth more, then go take the risk. Mm-hmm. They weren't mad at me. I'm replaceable. When I was younger too, and I was like, oh, I'm top 2 salesman every year. I'm irreplaceable. Wrong. Right? Everybody's replaceable. There's 8 billion people on this planet. We're all replaceable.
And how was the first year when you made that transition?
It was tough. So the great thing for me was I was still able to, I had a really strong sales background. So I was doing some consulting for food. So I had different streams of income coming in. I had some rental properties, and my wife was working. We joke about it all the day. She's like, oh my God, for at least 1 year, I was a breadwinner in a household. So I let her have that little win, which was okay. But the most important thing is I had support at home. We saved up enough money, so it wasn't like I was desperate for a paycheck. I worked in pharma at that time. It was 13 years. So over the years, we didn't have kids. We had a good lifestyle. I had a big 401k, so I had places to fall back on if I needed to. But it was uncomfortable. I mean, working this hard, convincing somebody and making $300, I'm like, maybe I should go bartend in Vegas and buy all these properties because this ain't working.
At what point did it make sense where you're like, okay, I'm glad I did this? So like, was there kind of a turning point?
Yeah. So when I was still consulting for a food company, and I was still traveling quite a bit. And around 2010, I meet my business partner now, still to this day, Tucker. So I run into Tucker. I get my first listing in Arcadia. Think about this. It was like Kai Tuberia and 46th Street. Back then, I listed a home for $440. Right, we're gonna laugh at these numbers, right? $440,000. Tucker just got out of the Marines. He wanted to buy his own house. He was a hustler. He's 10 years younger than me, and so I was like 30. I think it was like around 35 and Tucker was 25 and I was 36, somewhere around there. So he ends up buying the house. We do a transaction. He's a local from Arcadia, born and raised. He represented himself, a Marine, and that really stuck to me. So I love, again, our men and women of the the serve our country. He's a patriot. He served for us. So we do a cross sell. It goes really well, super responsive. So Tucker and I say, yeah, let's partner up. Let's do this thing. I said, all right. So we're hustling. Tucker was a commodities trader by trade. That was in his family. So he was trading stocks and commodities from like 6 to 12. I was traveling quite a bit, but we were doing open houses every weekend. And after the third year of this hustle going on, 7 days a week, that year of working just weekends and nights or whatever, the real estate production outsurpassed my consulting gig, that I was traveling all the time for the food company. And I was like, you know what? If I could, I've always been a believer, if I focus on one thing, I could be so much more effective, right? And I tell my friends, like, hey, don't dabble in 3 jobs, just stick to one.
It's like if you read The One Thing by Gary Keller.
Yes,
book.
exactly.
Book, yeah.
Do the one thing. Don't have a plan B. If you have a plan B, you will always fail on plan A. And that year was a great year, obviously, because I made 6 figures in one and 6 figures in real estate. I'm like, you know what? I'm out. So I pulled off the Band-Aid completely after about 4 years of doing the side hustle. And I went full-time. Tucker went full-time like 3 months later. So around 2015, we went full-time. 2017, we went to our old broker, said, hey, we want to buy you out. Our office, she had an office in the lobby of the Biltmore Hotel, but we'll keep you on as a partner for first few years. And she agreed to. We were doing like 90% of our production. And we didn't like the brand, so we were going to rebrand. So in 2017, we rebranded into the Brokery. So Tucker and I co-founded the Brokery. And like a year later, we opened up that second office. Our first flagship office is still, which we still have, is in the lobby of the Biltmore Hotel.
Oh, wow.
It's the coolest thing ever to have an office in one of the most historic hotels in Arizona that everybody knows. And then we opened up the one in Arcadia. Tucker's family bought the lot in 2013. They built it, took a couple of years. And then in the middle of the pandemic of 2019, we bought 8th Street in Bethany Home. And our plan is to continue to expand across the valley, these boutique little offices in neighborhoods, and to grow with the neighborhood.
So you have, you still sell, yourself and Tucker, you're out working with clients, and obviously in Arcadia, that's a pretty competitive area, but there's also some great opportunities there. And then you also have a bunch of agents. How many agents are within the Brokery now?
Yeah, so this is how quickly the growth expanded. So in 15 or 17, when we bought our partner out, I think Cindy, the company, had like 5 or 6 of us. And that year, in 17, it was called Biltmore Lifestyles Real Estate Company, did $35 million in sales. Last year, we finished at just over $350 million in sales.
Wow.
Tucker and I produced just roughly around $90 million of the 350. And now we have roughly 40 agents. We have 5 full-time employees. All our full-time employees have health benefits. We offer a 401k. Again, it's just a dream. Like when we started, and Tucker and I were running around, and I think it might have been 2012 or 13, and I made the first, like that year, Tucker and I each made around $300,000 in commission, so total 600, split at 50-50, because we always split the business down the middle. I was like, I'm set for life. Like I'm gonna. At that time, my son was Levi was born in 2011. Lily was born in 2012. I didn't have to travel again unless it was pleasure. I was like, I'm going to be soccer dad or soccer dance dad for Lily, whatever they want to do. Levi soccer, Lily dance, whatever sports. I'm going to take the kids to and from school. I have the freedoms back. $300,000. This is perfect. I'm going to live this, because at Abbott, when I was making good money, I was still always on this leash. Like I had to answer phone calls and drive and reports and all that stuff. And then, it was like, okay. And then people were like, oh, we created a team. The first team was called the Suits. For anybody new to Biltmore, we created a team concept called the Suits. Why? Because when I came to Arizona, I would still wear a suit. I thought real estate was too casual. I'd bring clients to like PV Homes, and the agent was wearing shorts and a t-shirt, which is totally cool for a lifestyle. But when you're representing a $2 million house, my clients were like, is that the homeowner? Like, who is this? Like, who? And I'm like, that's the agent. They're like, the agent's wearing this on a $2 million listing? Like, it was foreign to them. So we joke around, I always wear a suit. Sometimes I'll even wear a 3-piece suit. And
well, yeah, we're here on a podcast, so people can't see you, but you're in a suit, and it's actually tailored really well too. I'm impressed.
Thank you.
Because you're not in one of these like oversized, Mr. Mac suits or whatever they are. Like you gotta, and you said you surprised me when you said you wear that every day. That's a commitment, but it's also distinctive in the market.
Yeah. So I've always been, I grew up. So I was born in a Ukrainian household. So European families are always. Like even you go to a grocery store, for anyone who you go to Czechoslovakia, Russia, Ukraine, wherever, the women have heels on. Like, I mean, for those that have traveled in Europe, they're always dressed to the nine. So you have that. Then I grew up in New Jersey, where it's still very, very formal. And I worked for a pharmaceutical company. So that's all I knew. It's all cultural, right? So I came out here, I'm like, yeah, I sell in houses. It doesn't matter the temperature. Like in Jersey, it's 95, but humidity is 100 degrees. I'm sweating through my suit. Here it's, yes, 110 is hot, but I'm not really sweating. And people they look at me like, aren't you hot? I'm like, nah, this is actually cool for me. Like, I can handle this. But in the summer, I would still be sitting open houses in a suit, and people would be like, do you need water? Are you okay? I'm like, I'm great. How are you? You want to buy this house? Like, it's just, it's a mindset. Like, that it's just different. I can't explain it.
And the brokery, where so many of the trends are going from more virtual and less local, and there's some brokerages where the real estate agents don't even go into an office ever. You guys have gone and swung the other way, and you've really made a presence in your neighborhood. Can you kind of talk a bit about that and what that means to you?
Yeah, so the inspiration, so Tucker loves Southern California. So him and his Ashley would always go down to La Jolla. And if you go to Southern California, on every corner is a real estate office, right? You're in La Jolla, San Diego, Encinitas, wherever you go. And there's not only one, there's like two. Like if you look at a Home Depot, right across the street is Lowe's. Competition, right? Competition is great. Competition is the basis of capitalism. The way you get better is when competition does something you don't do. Mm-hmm. And you shouldn't hate, you should participate. You're like, oh man, take a reflection of what your business is not doing. So Tucker's out there, and he's like, this is a really cool concept. And this is, you're 100% right. This is like 2014, 15. The market's just turning a little bit back up, but everyone's getting away from brick and mortar. The Amazons are now, you're ordering stuff online. And Tucker, man, he's full blood Arcadia guy. Like, he was born and raised there. He wanted to do something local. And we already made that model work, because when we got into the Biltmore in 2009, we hung our license with Cindy. In 2010, we started rolling there. I saw a niche. And again, I'll give a lot of credit to pharmaceuticals. When you're selling 50 similar drugs to a doctor, there's got to be added value proposition. So I was like, wait, we have an office in the lobby of the Biltmore Hotel, and nobody knows us in the Biltmore. This doesn't make any sense. There's 23 different subdivisions. The sellers would benefit if there's an agency representing them, when the hotel's sold out all the time. And who doesn't want a second home in Arizona, especially here in Phoenix, 10 minutes from the airport? So we created this added value proposition as we started our marketing. And Tucker's brilliant when it comes to marketing. His vision for marketing is amazing. I love the sales. I'm the people person. I can go schmooze with people. I can hang out with people. So we were like the yin and yang, and it worked great. I let him do the marketing. He let me do the positioning, and it worked out great. So then we went to Tahoe for one of the spring breaks, and I have bad knees, so I'm not a skier. My wife's on the slope with the kids, and I'm driving around Tahoe, and there's a firm that has an office that looks just like ours. The guy had like 16 offices right around the Lake Tahoe. And I was like, man, it's the coolest thing. Like, I never saw an office in a neighborhood, and I got like, it resonated. I was like, this is it. This makes perfect sense. So as people went away from brick and mortar, we were like, hey, we're going to become your neighborhood. We're going to start investing. I believe in real estate, so I'm going to buy land with you. I'm going to build $1 million or $2 million office, but I'm asking you as neighbors to support us. So when you're going to sell, I'm bringing your home values up. Use us. So we started doing farmer markets, dog events, client appreciation events. So the neighbors started becoming one with us. And we literally flipped Arcadia Lights market and the market share in, I don't know, maybe 16 to 24 months. It was that quick by becoming one. And everybody, when Tucker's family was building the office, everyone was like, is that going to be a restaurant? Because LGO's corporate office is right there. Is that going to be a barbershop? Everybody wanted to know what it was. And then they were a real estate office, and they're like, huh? But they thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Is it more like a home that turned into an office? Or
no, it's all dirt. So so again, because we believe in local, we used a Studio Ma. Chris and Christiana, husband and wife, they live back in the neighborhood. Vista General is a local contractor. We like modern, and it was like an iconic building. It wasn't too loud. The views were great. It kind of kept the authenticity of the neighborhood with the woods and stuff, and boom. And then we saw this place on 8th Street and Bethany Home. It used to be State Farm Insurance office, mid-century modern building. And I love mid-century modern. It's super cool architecture. One day, my son had a sleepover. He was going to Madison Simus. I'm driving back on a Sunday, and I'm like, is that for lease or for sale? Because I had my eye on this building for a long time. It was 9 o'clock in the morning. I called the agent on the sign, Barney, and I said, hey, Barney, is this for sale? He's like, yeah, it's on the market. And like I said, it was like in 2019. Yeah, we only a couple of years. It was in the middle of COVID or whatever. And he's like, yeah, it's for sale. I called Tucker at like 9:20, and 10 minutes later, we have an offer out on that building. Like, we're buying this. Because we love the architecture. We want to be one with North Central. We want to be one with Arcadia. And our goal is to have one in downtown Historic District, in East Valley, North Scottsdale. Our goal is to have 9 or 10 of these amazing, cool concepts in the next 3 to 4 years.
Yeah. So where do you see kind of the real estate agent type of business going from here? Because I know a lot of people think that it's going to become very like everything's virtual, everything's maybe even automated by like crypto. You can just buy your home yourself. Where do you think it's going to go from here, like 10, 20 years from now?
Yes, it's a great point. I've had these conversations, many of these conversations. So when Zillow came out, I had some heart-to-heart with some other brokers that have been in the business a lot longer than me. So Zillow really came out in like 2010. Mm-hmm. And they were like, oh my God, Oleg, if you don't get on Zillow, we're going to be obsolete, right? Mm-hmm. 10 years later, or whatever, it's 2022, and Zillow got out of the market and the brokeries were out. The problem with, well, not the problem, I guess the savior for us as realtors, which is really the positive, is it's still a human business. You may be able to run commercial on cap rates, and if the rates don't work, there's zero emotions when it comes to commercial. There's zero emotions when it's multifamily. I know what I'm borrowing at. I know what the rents are going to be. That's it. When it's an emotional purchase, you will always need a human touch to finish the deal. Every single time, you need a mediator. That's why attorneys are going to be here for life, because divorce attorneys, tax attorneys, whatever kind of attorneys, you always need a mediator when it comes to something that deals with emotions of a human being. And the quicker the agents understand that, the better. They're the ones that are going to outlive the technology front. Why I say this. You still have Binzers. You know how many deals fall out over $500 because there's a leaky faucet, because the inspector told you there's a leaky faucet, or the roof is at its life. It's $12,000 to put on a new roof. Like, or people from the East Coast, like if you had a house with termites on the East Coast, dude, that's like, forget about it, because you got to tarp off the roof. It ate out all my wood. It's $5,000 or $6,000. Here in Arizona, you got termites. That's $400. Right. So people don't know when they move to different markets. Even though they tell me, oh, I bought 30 homes in the last 30 years, I'm not going to buy this home. I'm like, all right, I'll buy it. Like, I'm in. The numbers make sense. So in our market, in residential, and think about it, as you get older, you accrue more assets. When I was 25, I was worth $3, right? Now I'm 46, I might be worth $15, 5 times what I was then, right? Now I have a financial planner. I have different people managing different assets. I don't have a robot managing. If I want to play on Robinhood or crypto, which I do and I always lose, it's like going to casinos. I have like, hey, 35 on black. I have the same odds, right? Here, when your biggest asset is real estate, are you gonna always believe an algorithm? Zillow did, and they got out of the market. It burnt them. Open Door's still around. Great. There's gonna be a niche for. There's always gonna be techies that are gonna go that route. But still, in a market like this with technology so high, over 90% of all transactions are involving at least one realtor on one side. So when is that gonna go away? Definitely not in my lifetime. I'm 46. I don't see that changing. It might go down to 88% or 40%. Still, that means
It's a big market.
It's a huge market. So in residential, I'm always a believer you're going to need a human to mediate one side or both sides to get these things done.
Yeah. All right. So one kind of two-part last question is, what advice would you give, because I'm a college student, I go to Grand Canyon University. What advice would you give to a college student who wants to be an entrepreneur? Maybe they're 19, 20 years old, maybe 21. They want to start a business. What advice would you give to them in terms of what industry to go into? Like, what industries are hot right now? What would you suggest? And also just kind of like mindset advice, and what's kind of the key things that they should learn or start to learn?
So advice. Find a great mentor. Not somebody in academia, not there's anything wrong with it, but not academia. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you find a true entrepreneur that will let you shadow them. That's number one. If you want to be a teacher, then go to a professor and go to academia. If you want to be a lawyer, go volunteer for a judge for the summer. Don't think about the money today. Think about where you want to be 3 to 5 years from now. You always have to have a plan. You have to have a vision. I'm a big believer that sports, like I grew up in a very athletic household. I played college soccer. That kind of commitment sticks with you through life. I wish I was more committed to the gym now. So does my wife. So one day I'll get back more in the gym. But find a mentor and don't ask for money. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. The opportunities that, like when I was younger and getting into business, if I would have been an apprentice for free for a year to learn from some of the best in the business, because then I don't have to reinvent the wheel. Everyone's like, oh yeah, I'm on Instagram. That's great. Listen, your sphere and your Instagram is not where you want to be. You want somebody who's an entrepreneur, somebody who's a risk taker. Look sitting next to me. I mean, you started what, multifamily? How did you start your career?
Yeah, I did Wall Street, and then had bought a few buildings, and I was like, I want to do real estate instead of equities. So, yeah.
Right. So, I went to school for bioprevent. I'm doing nothing with it now. Right. So, the book inspired. Like, if I had a good realtor when I was younger, I would have been even further ahead because I would have started my career earlier. Now, real estate's not for everybody. You could be the best food person and have a franchise. You got all these massage envies. You got chiropractors. I mean, this America. It's the best place in the world. This is the only country you could be a billionaire today, broke 3 days from now, and 8 days later be a billionaire. You get born in any other country, it's not happening. I am telling you the truth, it's not happening. Pair yourself up with a great mentor. Shadow them. Do everything you can, and don't be hungry for. Yes, you'll make money. They'll pay you. If you're worth to them the value that you bring, they'll pay you. Even if you think it's an internship for free. If I had somebody taking a lot of stuff off my plate, I would pay them what I believe they're worth. So that's number one. And when you do find that person that's willing to take you in, loyalty will take you everywhere in life. Because the skill set they teach you in the first 6 or 12 months, and then you go out to the market like, oh, someone's going to pay me 80 grand. That's fine, go. Or you stay long term because they taught you things that the 60 or 80 grand is going to be in your rearview mirror 12 months from now. Because they taught you skills that academia will never teach you. Now, you also want to find somebody that aligns with you to your core and culture. There's a lot of good people out there. There's a lot of bad people that make money. If you feel that the cultural and moral way is not aligned, then that's not your arena. Go, leave. So stick to your morals and culture, and then find the right mentor in the career that you want to be.